So this offseason, as the Minnesota Vikings were looking for the potential successor to JEROME Ezekiel Cousins, mainly in the draft, they didn't do it, as well as potentially in trade. They didn't do it. And Trey Lance, the pride of Marshall, Minnesota, the pride of NDSU, was atop of that list. Just bringing him home because the San Francisco 49ers, they weren't developing him, even though they traded up heaven and earth to go get him at number 3 overall. And for whatever reason, it wasn't quite working out, but it's a mama, I can change him league. And maybe the Vikings could have Lance sit behind Kirk Cousins for a year if Kirk wasn't part of the trade, and then go from there. But it didn't happen for whatever reason. But Schefter was on the Pat McAfee show on Wednesday, and he got into the Trey Lance talk, and apparently the Vikings, they weren't in. So this is what he said, quote, "There really was never a lot of interest in trading Trey Lance for what the Niners, gave up and what they would get back, which is not very much at all. It doesn't make any sense to trade him. There was no trade market, and Kyle Shanahan has said they didn't have any trade talks with teams." Now, this does fly in the face of a report from Rap Sheet earlier in the offseason, where it said Souses. The 49ers have received inquiries from several teams looking into a potential trade for number 3 overall pick, quarterback Trey Lance. The conversations have been the result of San Francisco fielding the calls, not making them, with teams aware that Brock Purdy is likely the future starter. Now, both of these things could be true. I mean, teams may have called him, may have called the 49ers. Of course, Kwesi and John Lynch, they go way back like chiroprac. John Lynch seen as a bit of a mentor to Kwesi when he came up through the Niners ranks. So part of it could be true. Maybe teams did call, but also it could be true that talks didn't get very far, because mainly the compensation that the Niners had to give up for Trey Lance was pretty sizable. 3 first-round picks, which turned into Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Bradley Chubb. No big deal. So turning around and flipping that for a 3rd-round pick would be pretty embarrassing and would be egg on the face of the Niners. And you would think that John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, both seen as very smart football guys, and having a mistake at that high in the draft at quarterback, the most important position, that would sting. That certainly would sting, even though they tripped ass backwards into Brock Purdy. But again, whatever there. And maybe part of why talks didn't get off the ground is because maybe the Vikings weren't willing to include Kirk Cousins. Of course, Kirk to the Niners, reuniting with Kyle Shanahan, has been the talk of the town for the last, 3, 4, 5 years. But it hasn't happened, and the Vikings are hitching their wagon to Kirk for one more season, at least, at minimum. But I'm not ready to give up on Trey Lance. I understand that people are out saying that he's a bust, whatever. But again, number 3 overall pick for a reason, even though, yes, Zach Wilson at number 2, maybe seen as a bit more of a bust. But Trey Lance has a big arm. He's accurate. He takes care of the football. He's got some mobility as well. And, I mean, he basically had 1 year starting experience at NDSU, and he only got in a handful of games his first 2 seasons with the Niners before breaking his ankle. So I'm not ready to give up. I do think that Trey Lance will be solid in this league if he's put in the right situation. Could that be with Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings? Potentially. Because I don't think this is over. Because if the Niners do commit to Brock Purdy long term, or I don't know, maybe Sam Darnold comes in and is actually something, Trey could be the odd man out. And then as more time passes, it takes less of the sting. It takes more of the sting out of trading the former number 3 overall pick, the guy that you gave up 3 1s for. And maybe Trey Lance does find his way to Minnesota, because it's not just because he's a Minnesota kid and a local product. I believe in his talent. I think that he has a chance in the right system, in the right environment, to thrive and really pan out that potential that made him the number 3 overall pick in the draft back in the day. For your thoughts on our thoughts, Adam Schefter saying that there's no trade market for Trey Lance, and the Vikings apparently were not interested. Let us know your thoughts on our thoughts in the comment section below. Subscribe for daily Vikings takes. Want to support the work? Put a little something in the Venmo. But till next time, Skol, production value.